This is everything I took to the Yorkshire Divide. So this is a tech deep dive on everything I took to the Yorkshire Divide and what I thought worked and what maybe didn't work so well. Okay, so obviously I took my Trek checkpoint, and you guys, if you follow me, you know that I'm supported by Trek. So for me to say that this was an amazing machine and I couldn't have made a better choice, to be honest, probably lands on deaf ears. You're probably going to be like, oh, well, you're supported by Trek. Of course you're going to say that. Yes, I'm supported by Trek, but I had a lot of bikes at my disposal. I could have used the Trek Super Caliber, which is their XC bike, which I had recently, which is an incredible machine and is something that a lot of bike packers actually use. It's an XC bike, a full sus, which has a lot of frame space because of the positioning of the isostrut suspension. But I chose not to ride that. I chose this because it's like a drop bar XC hardtail, but like a soft tail as well. Like, this genuinely works. This decoupling system in the back genuinely works. There was a couple of occasions I was riding through technical terrain where it almost felt like I was getting a flat in the rear because I was just riding over the rough stuff and it was just kind of absorbing it. But everything was just super comfortable. I completely rate this. If you're looking to buy a gravel bike that can handle UK bridleways, like genuine bridleways, then this is your beast. However, it was super quick on that finely graded gravel. So yeah, I have this bike to thank for getting those 220 kilometers done on day 4. I don't think I could have done that on an XC bike. So this was my beast, absolutely rate it. I couldn't have picked a better bike. The saddle I absolutely love, but there's no point in me talking about saddles to you because it's very personable. The one thing that I didn't really like on this bike was the gearing. And I was a bit worried about this going into the ride because it's a 40 tooth up the front and at the back it's a 44, so that's not very big for the rear cassette. And actually that was just about the easiest gear you can get on SRAM Force. So you can actually drop down to a 38, but like, that's 2 teeth. I mean, it wasn't really gonna, that's 1 gear, it wasn't really gonna help. And I did find that the gearing was too big for the Yorkshire Divide. For proper English riding, proper hills, that's too big. I actually did order some Shimano GRX, which had a 38 tooth and would go up to a 51 at the back. So that's quite a lot of gears easier. That would have been perfect. Sadly, some of the parts didn't match my bike. They were ordered wrong, so I couldn't fit it in time, but that would have been perfect. Honestly, you need easier gears than you think you need for bike packing, especially when you're fully loaded. One thing, however, not good for bike packing, electric batteries. It ran out on day 4. You're gonna need to spare if you've got electrics. There's no way around it. So one of the big reasons that I wanted the gravel bike, other than the fact that it's a great pedaling position, it's fast, and it's just as comfy as my XC bike, is because it's got bottle bosses all over it. So obviously I've got 3 or 2 in the frame, 1 on the underside, which is where I keep my cig bottle, which was kind of like a thermos where I've had food in there that I was carrying. And then up the front, I've got bottle bosses to put cage mounts. So I've got the Tailfin cage racks here, getting the name wrong. I'm not actually sponsored by Tailfin. They were just kind enough to donate some for the event with no obligation to say anything. But I definitely wanted cage mounted stuff on the forks because I've used this quite a lot in the past. I find it really nice to have the weight low down, and in the front I can see what's going on. I'm just more aware of it than in the rear, which can sometimes wobble around. Although I will get onto this, this does not wobble. This is amazing. But so these are the cage packs, which are Tailfin specific. It doesn't mean that you have to use them with the Tailfin cage mounts here, but they are kind of handy in the way that they work together. You don't actually need anything to hold them on the bottom because they have these 2 hooks here, which the straps go around, And like, honestly, I'm on a rigid gravel. I was going over Yorkshire bridleways and these they barely shook, let alone wiggled free. There was not even a squeak or a rub. They were amazing. So this is the 3 litre. I thought it would be quite big, but actually it was smaller than I thought. I wouldn't bother going for a 1.7 unless you're a roadie. They do a bigger version. They go up to, so this is a 3 litre, they go up to a 5 litre. So make of that what you will. I'm going to empty these in a second and show you what you can actually get in a 3 litre. But just to move on to the Aeropack, they do an aluminium version, which has bottle bosses on the side, so you can put more packs on the side. This is the carbon. This is the lightest version that they do. I don't know weights. You're gonna have to go on their website if you want to know that. But this is actually their brand new version of the Aeropack. This only came out in Sea Otter this year. It's not on the website yet, but maybe it will be in a month or two's time. Keep an eye out for it. It's even lighter than their previous one. You can tell that it's different because it's got the straps a bit like the cage packs up the front, and perhaps this might actually have a different name, like a Aeropack Cargo perhaps. And I just absolutely love the fact that it's top loading, so I could open it, I could see everything that was in my bag. I didn't have to reach down to the bottom of a dry bag or empty the whole thing to find my stuff. I put locks and sweets and all sorts in the side packs which I could actually access while I was reaching behind me. My waterproof jacket went in and out of the side pack. I literally had nothing in my pockets in my back jersey, which I loved because this was just so good and easy to access. I really recommend this bag. There was a couple of people who were using it at the event as well, which I think speaks to the quality of it and the usefulness of it. I will say it's a bit fiddly to get on and off, but the fact that you can literally just pull these here and unhook it is just like really useful if you're used to mucking around with straps on seat packs and, you know, unlacing things and having to lace them back up in the morning. This is much quicker than that. And also, no wobble whatsoever. This did not shake about like a dog's tail, which many of the other riders did have that issue. I could see it waggling away. I could see people stopping to fix their seat packs. I didn't have to do that the whole time. And being a short lady with not much clearance here meant that there's a ridiculous amount of space in here, probably like 7 litres, if not more. There's no way I could get that kind of storage on a seat pack. So little people and anyone who's annoyed with wiggly tails, this one's for you. So Tailfin were going to send me their top tube bag, which is this kind of magnetic flip up model, but they forgot. But I didn't mind because I have an Apidura bag that's pretty much exactly the same. Although on the website it was supposed to be about 50 grams lighter. Not that I really care, and I think this is a really important point. I really do rate Apidura. I've got a lot of other Apidura bags that are very light and very well made. However, this particular bag, once I had my multi-tool in it, my phone and a few snacks, was quite heavy, and the plastic bolts which went through the bottom and into the top tube were just not sturdy enough to take the abuse of Yorkshire, and it completely snapped off. So I'm left with some bolts in my top tube, sadly, and this had to go, luckily my pack is big enough to take it, and this had to go in my backpack. So sometimes, you know, looking at tiny little grams here and there and trying to save weight is great, but when it comes down to the finer details of reliability, like when it comes to choosing plastic bolts instead of metal bolts, that's where I would start to draw the line. So if you're doing a proper trip, maybe get something that is just a little bit more robust in the hardware. So this is my SIG bottle. So SIG is like a brand, much like Thermos is a brand. It'll keep things cold, it'll keep things hot. So I thought, oh, I'll just fill up with hot water, some dried food, some camping food with some hot water, and I'll have a hot meal at lunch and I won't have to find anywhere to eat. And that kind of did work out, and I've got to say, this is just the Tailfin cargo cage and the Tailfin straps, and like, look how sturdy that is. It's so close to my chainring, never had an issue, never bounced, never moved. It was perfect. And all it is just these rubber Tailfin straps, which I'm not quite doing in the right way. I'll speed this up and edit. So there you go. So there she is, absolutely battered and covered in dust, but it's literally just a bit of a screw top there. I've got my folded spoon in there, which, you know, obviously kept nice and clean. I had some anti-back wipes and some cleaning products to keep this clean as well, but I was stopping in hotels, so I was washing it regularly. And then it has this screw top, which is possibly a little bit welded together now. Oh, I've left some food in there and it's all fizzing now. Yeah, I've left some porridge in there. Yeah, I forgot about that. So it's a couple of days after the event, but as you can see, my chocolate porridge is still going strong in there. It kept it from the elements. I did rate this. However, I used tent meals, which was like dried food. It has a short shelf life, but mainly because it was real food, it was real nuts and real spices, rather than sort of like preserved stuff, which some other brands can do. And it was tasty. However, after about 3 days, my body seemed to start rejecting dried food with water added to it, because it always seemed like I was just eating soup. It felt like food with water added to it, if that makes sense. And my body started to crave real stuff. I had a couple of camping meals that were already, like, not dried, that were already done. They were basically like baked beans and sausages, effectively, like in a silver pouch. And that went down so well. There's just something different about it. I do rate dried food for lightweight, but I think the real stuff you need some of as well if you can't get to restaurants or petrol stations, which seem to be my favorite restaurant on the route. You may have noticed I'm using PT's Fidlock bottles. I am not sponsored by PT's, I just happen to have them, and I put them on my gravel bike because when you take them off, you've got instant frame space if you're putting a frame bag in, and I wanted this bike to be the bike that I use if I just suddenly decided that I was going bike packing and wanted to put a frame bag in, because sometimes you can put the water on the front. So I liked it for that reason. I wanted to see if they were good for bike packing, and they were. I absolutely didn't lose a bottle whatsoever, and once you get used to the placement and how to put them on, they're as easy as a normal bottle. So I'm not trying to sell them, but they worked for me. They were fine. I think they're about on par with a normal bottle. So I said I'd show you my tools, and this can be accessed via the door, either with or without a bottle on it, which I think was pretty cool. And then in here, you've got your little sort of little loop, which you can pull, and you pull out all your tools basically. And stuffed up in there is 2 inner tubes. And then in my Trek tool bag, I had another inner tube, and I effectively have 2 tire levers there, CO2 canister, and also the CO2 dispensing thing, whatever that's called, and then some tubey plugs as well, which just stab into your tire, because I was running tubeless, just in case I got any punctures, which I didn't. And to be honest, I was immensely surprised and impressed by the tires that I was running. Those tires look like they should be on the road or on fine gravel, and they were actually incredibly strong. I bashed the rims like multiple times. I hit water bars, I hit rocks. I felt those rims multiple times. Not once did I puncture. There's no marks on those rims at all. Bontrager, you did an absolutely fantastic job on that combo. I couldn't have asked for a better tire. However, I think if it had been wet, I would have wanted a little bit more tooth in the tread, shall we say. I did skid a little bit on some wet grass, but as it was dry, I think it was a fantastic choice. Okay, let's empty out my stuff. So you can see that this is quite empty, and this one is too. That's because an entire one of these was my dried tent meals food, and I sort of redistributed as I ate it. What I had was some lubricant, I had some spare cleats, and I had some spare sort of elastic mounts for my Garmin or for things that just needed to kind of be strapped to my bike. Some GoPro batteries because I went full influencer mode and had to film myself. Load of charging cables with just one plug socket. So for my phone, for my Garmin, and for my light, I brought an Exposure 6-pack on the front there. Oh no, I think it's a Max D. Yeah, it's a Max D actually. I also needed a cable for my charger, for my spare battery, which, as you know, if you've watched the video, I did actually have to change over my SRAM derailleur battery. And this is electronic too, but I think it was totally worth it. This is a Flex Tail. This is just from Amazon. It's basically a pressure gauge and inflator all in once. It's like when you go to the petrol station and you select your air pressure and then you just press the button and it inflates it to that level and then doesn't go any further. So it's so quick and you don't have to think about it. And if it's set already, all you're doing is attaching it and pressing a button. Very, very quick, very, very much like that. Hairbrush in unicorn mode and travel sized, obviously. And some sun cream here. Life Jacket actually sent me a bunch of stuff to use on Instagram with no obligation to say anything, but I did take it out. And finally, a few bags in a bag. This is my wash kit, toothbrush, toothpaste, and a tiny little travel washing body wash liquid, forgotten the words, and also sort of a mini first aid kit, effectively, like indigestion tablets, which I actually did use, painkillers and ibuprofen, so paracetamol and ibuprofen, some lip blister care, some stereo strips, so if I cut anything, and you know, a stereo strip will pull it together until I can get to whatever I need to. And finally, right at the bottom, just in case, is a spare link. So firstly, look at the absolute size of this. It's like the size of my body. It's like I could get in there. It's huge. And then it has this kind of roll top feature, which also sort of excretes air from the back. So you kind of push it down. It can get real small if you want it to be small. And then you've got this sort of clip mechanism here. And then obviously you've got this sort of volley or bolly style strap here, which get real tight and you can make it really, really small. And I absolutely loved that. And then it was really easy to just open and get my coat out. And I would rate a Gore-Tex jacket over just like a little lightweight thing. However, this was amazing, I will say. I had my gloves in here as well, which were on and off quite a lot, dependent on the weather. I had some sweets, which are sadly now gone. I had a padlock as well, so that when I stopped outside of petrol stations and shops, I could just lock the frame to the front wheel, even if there wasn't a post, and just, you know, have peace of mind that my bike wasn't going to be gone when I came back out. Wet wipes, because your hands were always disgusting. Some half-eaten Snickers, and I had a rubbish bag, which I collected some of my stuff just to keep it away from the nice clean stuff, and some hand gel, which was in my top tube bag with the wet wipes, but when that broke off, we put it inside here. And so, okay, let's see what was in here. This was effectively just my wardrobe, because all of the food and the electronics were at the front, and this was my wardrobe in the back. So you'll see in the video that I basically wore this most of the time. This is just a lightweight merino top from Northridge. It goes down small, but it's like as warm as a proper jumper. I did have a merino neck warmer as well. It wasn't cold enough to use it, but I did actually use it as a hat in the evenings, just to sort of hide my helmet hair. And then I had basically one change of clothes. So I had 2 pairs of shorts, one that I was wearing, one that was spare, and it was getting washed in the showers in the evenings. And then this was like a second top that I could wear if I got wet, or if I wanted just a top to wear casually in the evening. So everything doubled as something. It was a neck buff and a hat. It was a top in the evening and a second riding jersey. I had tons of these single serving SAS beta fuels. There's 80 grams of carbs in here. This is huge. This is more than the usual Go Energy. I do rate these very much, but I did start to sort of not want the sweet taste after about 3 days, and I just wanted clean water after a while. So day 4 and day 5, the reason I've got so many left is because day 4 and day 5, I just drank water and ate normal food. So lesson learned on that. It was great at the start, but not after a while. I had some riding leggings with no pad because they doubled as evening trousers, but also warmth during the day if I needed them. And they could go underneath these waterproof trousers as well, which I did wear up on the moors. They were needed, if only just for warmth. It wasn't really to keep me dry. These were actually mandatory on the kit list for the Yorkshire Divide anyway, and I'm glad they were because I needed them. I had a pair of shorts to wear in case I didn't want to wear lycra in the evening, and they're just running shorts that are really, really tiny and didn't take up much space, but I never wore them anyway. And I did have an insulated jacket. I do have a long sleeve down jacket, which I usually take bikepacking, but I wanted a sleeveless version because I actually find that the long sleeves are too much sometimes. If I was camping, I'd have long sleeve, but because I was only going to use this in the evenings or underneath my riding jacket if it got really, really cold, then I wanted a sleeveless gilet. And I went the synthetic because if I was going to be riding it, then this would dry out quicker than down if it got wet. And last, but by no means least, was another bit of mandatory kit, and that was a survival bag. So all of that stuff, all of that wardrobe went into this little bag, which sort of went down to that size. I thought it was quite impressive. And last but not least, in case anyone was just wondering, I wear a Trek helmet. I don't have to, they don't ask me to, but it's actually a really nice helmet. This is the Circuit, it's like the XC/Road. It's super airy. I found this really light, really lightweight, really vented. It's got this wave cell technology, which, you know, gives you the added protection despite the fact that there's loads of huge holes in here. And do you know what's really great? Is the mount for the GoPro is magnetic. It just goes on and off like that, which is just brilliant for influencers like me. And it also has a magnetic version on the back for lights, so you can take them on and off real easy to get them charged up. And for shoes, I was wearing my Shimano GE9s. These are gravity clipless trainers, effectively. These are what I use when I'm enduro and trail riding. I wanted something that was a little bit more forgiving, that was going to have a rubber tread that I could walk around in. There was no way I was going to be wearing carbon soles. And these were just really nice to sort of like have a loose fitting Velcro system. The boa on the front meant that I could just open them up and just make them nice and loose. And that sounds really stupid, but if you've ever done long distance riding, you'll probably know that your feet contract and swell quite a lot dependent on the temperature and dependent on you and your fatigue and whatnot. So I did adjust these quite a lot, no hot spots whatsoever. I always ride in my trail shoes for bikepacking. So yeah, that's them. Okay, thanks, bye.